He's Secret of Joy, the story of an old woman and the art of being happy in every situation. Once upon a time, in a peaceful village nestled between golden fields and whispering groves, there lived an old woman named Madeline. She had spent almost her entire life in that village. She wasn't wealthy, nor was she famous, but she was cherished by everyone. To the villagers, she was simply Madeline the Joyful, because no matter the day, no matter the season, she was always smiling. Whether the rains flooded the fields or the sun scorched the crops, Madeline walked with grace every morning, hands behind her back, observing the sky, the flowers, the children playing, always with that gentle smile. Some said she was born under a lucky star, but a young man named Daniel, who had recently returned to the village after studying in the city, didn't believe in luck. To him, happiness had to be rooted in something real: a job, a relationship, money, success. One morning, troubled by his own restlessness, Daniel walked to Madeline's small wooden house and knocked on her door. "Excuse me, Madeline," Daniel began politely, "but may I ask you something I've always wondered?" Madeline smiled and nodded, waving him inside. She poured him a cup of warm tea before sitting across from him. "Why are you always so happy? Even when the crops fail or someone in the village falls ill, you still smile. Don't you ever feel sad?" Madeline sipped her tea, her eyes reflecting years of lived wisdom. "Ah, Daniel," she said, "I've cried oceans in my life, but I've learned something most people don't. Happiness is not what happens to you. It's what you choose to see in what happens." Daniel furrowed his brow, intrigued but unconvinced. "When I was younger," she began, "I had a wonderful little family. My husband, William, was a kind man, and we had 3 children. We didn't have much, but we had each other. We had laughter in the evenings and warm soup on the table. But one year," she continued, "William fell ill. We didn't have the money for proper treatment. I sold what I could, jewelry, furniture, even my favorite books, but it wasn't enough. He passed away during a cold winter night, holding my hand." Her voice didn't break, but her gaze drifted to the distant window. Daniel remained silent. He hadn't expected such pain behind her calm smile. "I thought I'd never feel joy again," she admitted. "I cried through that whole season. Every morning I woke to emptiness. But then," she said, eyes glinting, "one morning, a bird landed on my windowsill and began to sing. The sun streamed through the frost-covered glass, and in that moment I realized I'm still alive. My children need me, and if I keep sinking into my sorrow, who will hold them afloat? So I made a vow. From that day on, I would find one thing, just one thing, to be grateful for every day." "That bird saved your life?" Daniel asked softly. Madeline chuckled. "That bird reminded me that life goes on, and that gratitude isn't about ignoring pain. It's about choosing what you give your attention to." "Happiness isn't magic," she said. "It's discipline. Each morning I train my mind like a runner trains her legs. I'd ask myself, what is one thing, no matter how small, that I can smile about today? Sometimes it was the smell of bread from the neighbor's oven. Sometimes it was the way the dew sparkled on the grass. Other days it was just the breath in my lungs." Daniel leaned forward. "But surely some days you felt nothing worth smiling about?" Madeline nodded. "Of course, but even then, I reminded myself, pain is temporary, but the way I respond to it shapes who I become." There were days, she admitted, when disaster returned. "A flood once almost destroyed my home. My youngest daughter had a terrible accident and was in bed for months. But I'd learned something by then. I didn't ask, 'Why me?' I asked, 'What now?' And I told myself, 'This too shall pass.'" She paused and added, "The clouds can block the sun, Daniel, but the sun is still there. Just because you can't see joy doesn't mean it's gone. You see," she continued, "most people think happiness arrives when all the right things are in place: money, love, success. But that's an illusion. Happiness isn't a result. It's a perspective. 2 people can walk the same path. One sees mud, the other sees stars reflected in the puddles." Daniel was quiet. "So what do I do when I feel like everything is falling apart?" Madeline smiled. You look harder for the stars. And you remember, your emotions are valid, but they are not permanent. That night, Daniel went home and wrote in his notebook, "Today I'm grateful for the way the wind felt on my face. The next day, for the smile of the old shopkeeper." Soon, the habit took root. His thoughts became lighter, his reactions softer. When his plans failed, he didn't spiral. When people disappointed him, he chose forgiveness over frustration. Word of Daniel's new practice spread. Others in the village began their own journals. Morning walks became quieter, more intentional. The whole village began to change, not because their lives got easier, but because their focus shifted. The village didn't win the lottery. No one discovered gold. But fights at the market stopped. Children laughed more. Neighbors helped one another again. And every morning, on every porch, more and more people stood quietly, sipping tea, feeling the wind, and smiling, just like Madeline. Happiness isn't a reward, it's a habit, a skill, like learning to ride a bike or play a song. And that skill begins with gratitude, even for the smallest things. Perspective, even in the darkest hours. Faith that the storm will pass. Live like Madeline, not because she never hurt, but because she learned how to hurt, without losing her light. Years passed. The seasons came and went, and Daniel, now older and wiser, became a source of quiet strength in the village. Yet Madeline remained the soul of their little world, until the day she quietly fell ill. She didn't complain, she never had. Instead, she invited Daniel to her side one last time. Lying in bed, the late afternoon light casting golden shapes on her walls, Madeline took Daniel's hand. "My dear boy," she said in a soft voice, "do you remember the bird I once told you about?" Daniel nodded. "The one that sang on your windowsill?" "Yes," she whispered with a smile. "That bird wasn't just a reminder to live, it was a symbol. Life will sing to you, even after your hardest nights, if only you have the heart to listen." She paused to catch her breath. "Daniel, promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll teach others what I taught you, not just with words, but with how you live. Smile at the morning, even when it rains. Find the flower in the ash. And when someone says, 'How can I be happy in times like this?' you tell them, happiness isn't found. It's made, daily, quietly, patiently." Daniel's eyes welled with tears. Madeline squeezed his hand. "And when I'm gone, don't remember the old woman. Remember the habit, the vow, the choice." She closed her eyes, her breath slowing. "We're not meant to escape pain, Daniel. We're meant to walk through it and come out still able to see beauty." The last thing she said before she drifted off into eternal sleep was barely audible. But Daniel would never forget it. Train your eyes to see joy. The world won't always hand it to you. Madeline passed that evening, but in the silence that followed, her light remained, in wind-kissed cheeks, in shared smiles, in the quiet pages of gratitude journals scattered throughout the village. And every year, on the anniversary of her passing, the village would gather to share one thing they were grateful for. They called it the Day of Joy, and Daniel always ended the ceremony with the same words. She didn't teach us how to avoid sorrow. She taught us how to carry it and still dance in the sun. If this story warmed your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Stay Inspired 86, where timeless wisdom meets the present moment, one story at a time.